We all dread the day it happens. Your toddler suddenly starts trying to climb out of the cot and it feels like game over for sleep. Well, good news. It doesn't have to be. While we don't always get to choose when our toddlers transition to a bed, there are plenty of ways to make the shift smoother and keep their sleep and yours on track. Today, Dr. Laura and I are sharing everything we wish we'd known before moving our little ones from cot to bed, so you can handle this milestone with confidence. Welcome back to Brand New Little People, the podcast companion to the Sombel Pediatric Sleep Clinic programs created by us. I'm Dr. Fallon Cook and I'm here with Dr. Laura Conway, and we're the directors of Infant Sleep Australia. Laura, how's your weekend been?
Yeah, it was good, thank you. For those listeners who run their own business, they would understand what this feels like. But I took myself off for a park run on Saturday morning. I'm actually only walking at the moment, not running. But our minds never switch off when we're running our own business. So I was busy doing little voice memos, recording things that we're going to be using in our reels coming up on social media. So I've got these breathless recordings. I'll be sharing those with you later, Fallon.
Oh, awesome. That's so good. I love the multitasking. We never quite switch off, do we, really?
No, we don't. And how about you? How was your weekend?
Yeah, good. We're really in the thick of our renovations now. So there is dust everywhere, boxes of stuff everywhere. I've now got 3 kids sharing one bedroom. So there's bunks, there's cupboards stacked on top of other cupboards. It is like I don't know, it's just wild. It's totally wild.
It would not be a safe situation for a baby or a toddler who is just transitioning to a bed.
I said to my husband, we better really hope that a fire doesn't break out, because I don't know how anyone's gonna get out of here alive.
Yeah.
It is just a bit ridiculous at the moment. But that's okay. I am focused on the end goal. Our laundry and our main bathroom are over 50 years old.
Okay.
It's been 50 years since they were renovated and they are very tired. And just the thought of having laundry taps that work, that's pretty exciting for me. We have our laundry set up on our front veranda at the moment. So yeah, you can imagine it's like 5 people and 3 dogs sharing 2 small bedrooms at the moment.
Oh my goodness. You must really feel like you are in the gold rush times. Rush country.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank goodness we've got electric heating though. Those small mercies. Well, it's been a really interesting week the last week, because what I really started to notice, Laura, was that our TikTok account really warmed up, which was really interesting. So we often post stuff across TikTok as well, and I don't really talk about it much because, to be honest, it was a bit of an afterthought. I just kind of went, oh yeah, I'll tick that box. Let's send this to TikTok as well. But God, I'm absolutely loving it. Our followers on TikTok are beautiful, and we're having these really lovely conversations, and people are, commenting with these really cool ideas. Things like with the videos we did around dropping the dummy from last week's episode. Mm-hmm. So many parents jumped on and went, oh, this is how I did it. And then someone will reply and be like, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to try that for my toddler. And I love it when the content we're making is actually causing parents to have conversations and talk through what's worked for them. And it just feels really lovely. So if you're on TikTok, because I think that is where most people like to hang out these days. I know I spend way too much time there. But come and follow us. If you search for Sunvale, we should be the very top result that pops up. So do follow us along there. And on the note of dropping the dummy, one thing that a parent suggested, Spambo is their username on TikTok, was they had, with their toddler, it was time to get rid of the dummy. They took their toddler to Build-A-Bear, and they actually put the dummy inside the bear and, picked out a lovely scent to put inside the bear. And like, as you can really, you can tailor your little bear to your little one. And she was saying that worked really well. And their toddler was quite happy to have this nice toy to cuddle, knowing that their dummy was safe inside. And I thought, gosh, that's beautiful.
That is.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And look, Build-A-Bear is not accessible to everyone. I know for families like me where we're rural, it's like once in a blue moon we're anywhere near a Build-A-Bear. But, you can make your own. You could, find a way to kind of use that idea and run with it.
I love that. It's such a nice community, and other parents coming together and saying this worked for us. That's really lovely. So yeah, do join us on TikTok, everyone, and we can make that community even bigger.
Yeah, definitely. And someone on TikTok called Millie actually suggested today's podcast episode. They were asking how to move a toddler from their cot to the bed. And I replied and said, that's a great idea for a podcast episode. Stay tuned. Yes. And then this morning I was like, yeah, let's do it. It's a good topic. We're all going to cross that bridge at some point. It doesn't hurt to have a few pointers. So I think let's dive in. Let's start with when. When is the right time to move a toddler from a cot to a bed? And I guess for the purposes of this podcast episode, a bed could be the cot just with the sides taken off, could be a regular single bed, or some parents these days are opting for a floor bed. So we'll just bundle those all in together to mean bed.
Bed, yeah.
But what do you reckon, Laura?
I think wait as long as you possibly can before moving your toddler out of their cot. Wait until they are showing signs that they might climb out. So you don't have to wait until they have actually climbed out, but when they look like they are soon going to be able to manage it, then that would be when you'd go, okay, for safety reasons, we definitely need to make this bed environment safer for them. And look, if you can think about getting as close to 3 as possible. So if you have a toddler who isn't showing any signs of climbing out, keep them in the cot for longer. And so if they're 3, even 3.5, and they haven't grown out of their cot yet, and they haven't shown signs of climbing out, just be happy that they are still contained and safe in the cot.
Yeah, absolutely. Longer is definitely better. And I think too, if we think about sort of what they can manage at different ages, if they're sort of less than 2 years of age, they often just don't understand that they're supposed to stay in the bed.
Yes.
That's a foreign concept. So often when parents do move their toddlers into a bed a bit too early, excuse me, suddenly their toddler's coming into their room all night long. They've got this little visitor in their bed when co-sleeping was never something that ever previously happened. Suddenly that can start to pop up, which obviously works for some families, but for, I'd say, the majority, they're not so keen.
Yes.
But also little toddlers, ones under the age of 2, and I mean a fair amount of the ones over the age of 2, they don't understand what's dangerous. Their kind of ideas of what they should and shouldn't do are not in alignment yet with parents' views of what they should and shouldn't do. So, a young toddler certainly isn't going to be thinking, oh, maybe it's dangerous to be trying to go up and down the stairs, from the dark. Landing to landing in the dark. Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't climb up these cupboards. Whereas an older toddler is starting to get a bit of an idea that, these things can be dangerous. So, of course, when they're in a bed, they're just more mobile. They're typically able to move around a bit more. And we just have to be really, I guess thinking about that, how are we going to keep them safe? Safety should be your number one priority.
And if you have had to move your younger toddler out of the cot and into a bed because they've been climbing out, or you've already made that decision and made that move before this podcast episode has come out, then think about putting a safety gate on the bedroom door in order to keep your little ones safe overnight, so that they're not wandering down the hallway into the bathroom and turning the hot tap on, or any of those horrible things that some toddlers get up to in the middle of the night that none of us expect to see.
Yeah, it's so true. Well, let's skip ahead to that. We plan to talk a bit about safety issues to be aware of when moving
Fallon,
a toddler to a bed.
No,
that's all right. So I think, think definitely first about the bed. So the space that you're actually moving them into. If it's a cot with the sides off, a floor bed, or a regular single bed, definitely be following the manufacturer's instructions. I think that was a pretty obvious one there.
Yes.
Check the Red Nose website as well, because the Red Nose website provides guidance around safe sleep for toddlers as well, and as they move into beds. It's not just about cots. So definitely go and have a look through there. So often when I look at their website, I'm like, oh, I hadn't even thought of that. There's things you might not be across. But certainly think about the room. I almost say that, what I often do say to parents, think about the room as being the new cot. It's the new boundary of where your child is. So the whole room has to be safe. So the thing that always freaks me out the most, and I say it to every parent, is you've got to be so cautious with the cords for the blinds in the room if you've got blinds.
Yeah.
And I'm especially thinking about, I'm looking at some in my office right now, the ones that hang down in a loop and it's like silver shiny beads. To a toddler, they're like, yay, a beautiful necklace. They put it around. All they have to do is spin around once and
Yeah.
they're stuck. They don't know how to get out. And if you're not nearby, you can't hear. If your child can't draw air, you can't hear it.
Yeah.
As horrible as it is to even imagine such a thing, it is a really, really risky thing. You go around your house right now and just check, are all the cords secure? You can buy these really cheap little plastic things from Bunnings or wherever that secures them to the wall so that they can't be sort of pulled and played with. So important. So important. And I think just the usual things too, covering power outlets, making sure all the cupboards in the room are secured to the wall. Doesn't cost much to get a little kit so that you can screw cupboards into the wall. And just thinking about little items that compose a choking risk. Are there things in the room, smaller than a 50-cent piece that your child, we never think they're going to put stuff in their mouth, but often they just do.
Particularly when bored in the middle of the night.
Yeah,
if they've woken
exactly.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. When you're not there to directly supervise them, just clear the room of anything like that. And it doesn't hurt to have a boring, very plain room at this age, because then when it's sleep time, they're not thinking, oh, I want to go and pull down that tub of Duplo or whatever.
Yes.
It does just become a place for sleep and rest, which is really important. And just looking out for those heavy things as well, like lamps and things that tend to be up high where they can pull a cord and pull it down onto them. So, I think definitely really thinking through that safety lens if they're going to be in a bed and not in their cot. And 100%, like you said, Laura, the safety gate and the bedroom door can just make a huge difference. And just for peace of mind as a parent, you're not waking up in the night and thinking, are they wanted out to the kitchen and are they inspecting the knife block or, climbing the pantry shelves to get a treat? You just know that they're contained and they're safe. And you're going to rest a bit more easily, hopefully.
Yes. Yeah. And Fallon, when would you advise parents that it's not the right time to move their toddler from a cot to a bed?
Yeah, I would say if there's any sleep or settling difficulties, and that probably sounds a bit odd, but what I mean by that is so often parents have babies that enter toddlerhood and sleep becomes challenging. Often, they're standing up or, starting to crawl around a lot, or they're just really protesting very hard about bedtime. And a lot of parents will suddenly go, oh, maybe they don't like the cot.
Yes.
Maybe they'll be happier in a bed. They won't be. And moving them to a bed at that point is really unlikely to help sleep. It's actually probably going to make sleep even more challenging than it has been. So don't think that if sleep and settling's really hard, maybe moving them to a big bed is going to be the magic thing that they need, unless, they're obviously outgrowing the cot. They're 3 and they're pushing against the sides and it actually is bothering them. So that's definitely one of the things I would be thinking, that if sleep and settling's hard, it's not the time to move them. Another big one, a lot of parents will say, oh, we've got a baby due in a couple of months, so I need to kick the toddler out of the cot because I'm going to need it for the baby. No. Don't do it. Oh, raises a lot of problems. You don't want to have a toddler who's suddenly waking up and wandering around the house in the middle of the night right when you've got a newborn. But also, we don't want to create this situation where your toddler's now feeling very jealous of the baby because the baby has just been gifted their favorite place to sleep.
Yeah.
So, it's just not the right time to do it. If you need to buy another cot and you can afford to, I would highly recommend that you do that. You can always resell it later on, but if it means everyone's going to sleep well, I would say that's pretty good money spent.
Yeah. And we know that sleep in toddlers can go a little bit wobbly when a new sibling comes on the scene anyway. So we really want to be trying to keep as many things constant and consistent as possible around your toddler when they're having this great big upheaval in their life. So having that nice place that is very familiar to them, where they can sleep, they feel secure, can really help just whilst you're managing their sleep going a little bit wobbly. If their sleep's going wobbly because there's been these like momentous changes in their life, and they're now in a bed and potentially in a different room, and all of these big changes have happened, your little toddler is being told that they're not the baby anymore because there is an actual baby in the house, and they're not going to like that. And also their nice, comfortable, safe place that they have been in for the last few years has been taken away from them. So then things can really get much worse. So I really agree, Fallon. If you possibly can, don't move your baby out, your toddler rather, out of the cot just because the new baby's arriving. If you're going to do it, wait until either do it way before the new baby arrives, but taking on board what we've just talked about when you wouldn't do it, and safety issues, or think about moving them into a bed quite a long way down the line after the new baby's arrived.
I think that's really good advice. And same goes for any big life changes. If you're moving house, or, a parent's going to suddenly start working away for long stretches of time, or any kind of big shift, it's just not the time to make that change. So thinking about, I'm worried that there's some parents listening in going, oh no, we've done it too early. You might have even just tried to put your toddler in a bed recently and it's really not going well. Maybe that's why you've tuned in to this particular episode.
Yes.
So what do we say to those parents they've gone to move their toddler? It's a bit of a disaster. It hasn't gone to plan. What do they do?
Well, you can always go back to using the cot. So this would be a situation where, Fallon and I were often saying, don't go back, keep making progress, keep going forward. You've made that commitment. But this would be the exception to the rule. So it is okay to say, do you know what, now isn't the right time, hasn't gone as smoothly as we had hoped. Go back to using the cot again and try moving them to a bed further down the line. If going back to a cot isn't an option, then think through what their bedroom is like from their perspective. So make the bedroom really safe and comfortable for your toddler. Putting the baby gate on the door if that is helpful, so you're making it safe for them. And just going in the evening, and if there's a night light, just getting down at your toddler's level and looking around the room and just checking that there's nothing there that's actually scary for the toddler. They can feel a little bit more exposed when they're not in a cot anymore. So some things that maybe didn't bother them in the past, that chair in the corner or that picture on the wall that didn't feel threatening to them when they were in the cot, might now just take on a different meaning to them when they're in their bed. So just have a little look around and make sure that it is really comfortable for them. And if you do need to spend a bit of time in the room with them as they're going off to sleep, whilst they are in their starting to get used to falling asleep in their bed rather than a cot, that's also okay.
I think that's really good advice. And I love the advice to get down on your toddler's level, turn the lights off like it would be at nighttime and really think about what they can see. I don't know, probably a lot of our listeners might have seen a popular video recently online where a mum felt terrible. She realised that her toddler kept pointing and seemed upset by something, and she kind of went into the room and realised that with the light off at night, a few different objects that were in the room ended up looking like this sort of looming figure in the corner.
Oh,
and it looked like, I was like, oh my God, that would frighten me. Sometimes you go to sleep yourself and you open your eyes, you look around your room and there's like a coat hanging and you're like, oh no, I've got to get rid of that. That just looks like there's someone over there. And it was one of those sorts of situations. This poor toddler was like, oh, not enjoying it.
And it'll be like your partner saying, oh, get over it, Fallon. That's ridiculous. There's nothing there. And then actually turns out that something, it does look rather ominous. Oh, well done for that mum for noticing and then
Yeah.
hopefully making
Did the
changes.
detective work. Yeah. Yep. And even my kids now, they don't like to sleep if the wardrobe doors open a crack or, and that's fine. I totally get it. Like I wouldn't either. So I think we just, have to really think about what things look like from our toddlers' perspectives for sure.
And Fallon, what do you think? I'm just thinking about how we kind of tie this all up with a bow. Just thinking about how we can advise parents to prepare their toddlers for the move to a bed. What top tips would you give them?
Yeah, I think you could definitely do some preparation work with toddlers, especially if they're getting a little bit older. You've managed to hold them off until they're 2 or 3 years of age. I think definitely talking about it, describing what it's going to be like. This goes for any change in toddlerhood. I'm a big fan of this with potty training as well. Read books about it, really explain it, read about it, let them understand it. And, you might even talk about, their cousin what happened when they got their big bed, or, it just really helps to kind of give them the idea of what that will be like. And I'm a big fan too of actually taking them to the shops and letting them pick out their own bedding, letting them pick out a new soft toy that's specifically for their big bed, so that they feel involved in that decision making, and they're going to get really excited about the bedding they've picked out or the toy they've picked out, and make it that the bedding and the toy is just for when they're in that new bed. So they're really quite looking forward to it. And also, don't forget, I think often we assume our toddlers understand, but actually have a chat to them about how it's going to work. So say things like, this is where you'll sleep all night long. If you need me, I'm not far away, but you're going to sleep here tonight and I'm going to see you in the morning. So they're kind of understanding that, that is the intention. And a lot of parents will laugh like, oh yeah, good luck. See you in the morning. Sure, that's going to go to plan. Look, I know some toddlers are still going to call out quite a bit. Because it's different, it's a change, and maybe their norm is to just call out a bit at night time when they're in the cot, and they're going to still do it in their toddler bed. But just explaining, this is where we're going to sleep for the whole night can really help. And then I think as well, just keeping things as similar as you can. So this is not the time to stop using white noise or to take away blockout blinds or to make really big changes in that sleep environment. Opt for a sleep suit. If you've been using a sleep suit, keep using it, because your toddler, it's going to take them a long time to figure out how to replace their blankets in the night. So ideally we want to dress them really, really warm so that when they kick the blankets off and aren't really sure how to put them back, they're not too bothered. They're not going to wake up sort of freezing cold in the night. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour, really, isn't it, of making that big move. But hopefully there's some good advice in there for our listeners. And certainly if you're a Sunbelt member and you've got the toddler program, you'll know that there are chapters about this. We have a whole chapter dedicated to how to settle your toddler who is in a bed or has the side off their cot. And we have an astonishing number of approaches in there. I think, are there 5 or 7 or something? I don't know. And they can all be modified to fit your child's temperament, your parenting style, and all of that. So there's a lot of support in there. So if you're a member and this is something you're about to come up upon and you're thinking, how are we going to do it? Doesn't hurt to read through those sections early so that you're starting to sort of formulate a bit of a plan over how you'll do it. And of course, if you hit hurdles, send in your questions to the podcast, because we would love to answer them. Or if you've got any great tips, go along to our TikTok. Give us a comment so that we can share them with other parents as well. It's nice when parents help parents.
It is. I'm just having flashbacks, Fallon, to when I made the move for my eldest, and we couldn't, for various reasons. She was unable to come to the shop to get to choose the bedding, but I had asked her, what do you want? If Mummy has time to go to the shop, what would you like? And she had a very specific request of she wanted bedding that had teddies on. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, I don't actually know if there will be any, but there was a beautiful blanket with a teddy bear on, and I was just delighted to find it. So then when she came home from daycare, and I was like, come and have a look, and I can remember her face. Like, she was so pleased that she had this blanket with a picture of a teddy bear on, and it was kind of raised and fluffy, so it felt really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And yeah,
hitting
she
like
loved
the
it.
parenting jackpot, isn't it? I remember one time my daughter was about 5 and she was learning to ride her bike. And she's like, for Christmas, this is what I want. I was like, okay, I've got like my pen and paper ready. And then she says, I want a shiny rainbow helmet for riding her bike, but it needs to have a purple mohawk over the top. And I was like,
This is very
okay.
specific.
Yeah, I'm thinking, what am I going to do? Like, she's got her heart set on this. I went to Kmart and they had a shiny rainbow helmet with a purple mohawk. I could not believe it. I don't know if she'd seen an ad or something. I was like, yes.
All the
The
stars had aligned.
picky preschooler, gods had just shined upon me that day. And when she got it, she was just like, she could not believe it. It was amazing.
And those moments really stay with you, don't they? You're just like, yes, I really just nailed it. So good luck, parents listening to this who are doing something similar. And yes, maybe do what Fallon suggests and actually take your child to the shop to choose the bedding so that you don't have that heart in your mouth moment like I did. Like, what if I can't find the bedding that is what she's requested?
Yeah. Good luck, everyone. It's a big change, but yeah, it's all part of them getting bigger. And I don't know, I still loved really seeing my kids manage those big changes, and it's exciting. It's exciting.
It is exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive into some questions from parents. So maybe we'll start with Andrea. She has a 9-month-old who typically needs about 12 and a half hours of sleep per 24 hours. And generally sleeps really well, self-settling with minimal support. Currently, their baby is still taking 3 naps per day, 9 months. And Andrea says it can total over 4 hours of daytime sleep if not capped. She says while this much daytime sleep leads to poor night sleep, transitioning to 2 naps has been very difficult. Stretching wake windows causes her baby to become very upset, or she just tries to fall asleep early. They're also managing really long car trips due to their rural location. That rings a bell to me. Andrea says the baby naps well in the car, which often leads to excess daytime sleep, disrupting the usual sleep balance. So Andrea's got a few questions. So first up, should we push through with transitioning to 2 naps, or is it okay to stay on 3 naps for now? Maybe I'll read all the questions out. She also says, is it normal to have to wake a baby up from every nap? And how can we manage sleep during long car trips to avoid excessive daytime sleep?
Okay, Andrea, this is a real tricky situation where you are in a rural location, and therefore I'm assuming in order to kind of go about your life, you need to be in the car, and you have long car trips to get to wherever you need to be going. To get to your local Kmart might be a long way to go.
For a rainbow bike helmet with a...
with a purple mohawk. It's really tricky because one of the things that we would often suggest to families who write in with this issue where they're trying to transition their baby to fewer naps, we often advise that parents avoid the car outside of nap times wherever possible, because for some children, motion is like catnip. They just cannot resist falling asleep particularly when you're transitioning to fewer naps. In which case we just look, well, if you have to go somewhere in the car, then you will time that trip around the nap, when the nap is going to happen, so that you avoid the falling asleep between naps. So that's often what we would suggest, and for families who aren't in a rural location and aren't going to have to be in the car for long stretches of time, just as everyday life. Now, so for Andrea, in your situation, because you are in a rural location and you do have to be in the car quite a lot, what we have to think about is what is going to work for your family. And it may be that 3 naps a day is actually just going to continue to work for your 9-month-old, as long as you probably then look at moving bedtime a little bit later. So if your baby continues to need to have those 3 naps a day just because you're out and about so much in the car, then we have to think about dividing up that 12 and a half, 13 hours worth of sleep need across the day and the night. And if they're going to be having a lot of daytime sleep because they're napping in the car for a long time, then we have to then subtract that amount from that 12 and a half, 13 hours sleep, which will necessarily mean that bedtime and wake up, there's going to be a shorter duration between bedtime and wake up. So I guess just to sum up, ordinarily at 9 months of age, a baby is on 2 naps a day. And when you're doing that transition, avoid car rides. In Andrea's situation, if you can't avoid car rides, then I would be keeping your baby on 3 naps, but looking at shortening the total overnight sleep, so that the long daytime sleeps or the high amount of daytime sleep isn't leading to then lots of wakes overnight, because then that in turn will make it harder for your baby to drop down to 2 naps when they are ready and when it will suit you. Do you have anything to add, Fallon, to that?
Only that, often parents in that situation, when they sort of get to a point where they're like, okay, it's got to be done, we've got to move to 2 naps now, it's just not working anymore. Or if, for example, for Andrea, maybe having a shorter night just isn't possible for any number of reasons. Mm-hmm. One thing to consider would be if you can somehow arrange maybe a week where you don't have to take your baby anywhere in the car. So it could mean getting some help in, or ordering stuff online, or however you can engineer it. Mm-hmm. What you could do during that week is do a really big push for the 2 naps and capping that total day's sleep, so that the circadian rhythm completely adjusts. Because if you can get her to a point where she's having a longer night and less days sleep, sometimes when they're ready for it, that will just stick. And then you'll find you'll go in the car and she won't be anywhere near as sleepy. So it could just be that you need to do like a concerted effort for a week of just avoiding the car to really get the circadian rhythm into a pattern that you're liking, and then praying that it will stick. The other question that Andrea had was around that, is it normal to have to wake a baby from every nap? And it's kind of sometimes yes, sometimes no. So there will be babies where we have to wake them from naps temporarily to get this nice daily rhythm happening. And once they're in that daily rhythm, they're set and they'll just start to wake naturally. And so you're not having to wake them because they're meeting their sleep needs and they're in a great pattern. But there are certainly plenty of babies out there who have kind of these funny circadian rhythms, I think, where if we are like that, they'll always seem to want to take more days sleep at the cost of their night. So it's like it's a bit slippery. If we take our foot off the brake on the day's sleep, they'll have hours more and then be up all night long. And it just happens really easily for some babies. And I don't know why. We just don't quite understand it. If your baby is one of those babies, then yeah, your normal might be that you have to always wake them from their naps to keep their nights on track. So it really depends on the individual, I think. And I think as over time, especially across that first year as parents, we start to get a bit of a sense of how rigid we need to be with waking them up on time from naps. There'll be plenty of babies who, can just do whatever. They're really resilient. But there are certainly some that just aren't, and they need that really careful managing to stay on track. But yeah, if you're struggling, Andrea, and you want extra support, you know where we are. So we're always here to help you if you are having a tricky time figuring out that daily rhythm.
All right. Our next question is from Catherine, who has a 5-month-old baby girl, and she's been using the quick fade approach, which has resulted in a significant improvement in overnight sleep. Oh, well done, Yay. Catherine. Yay. She describes that. Yeah, her daughter is now sleeping in 5 or 6 hour stretches overnight instead of waking every 2 hours. So that's
I bet Catherine's
really
feeling like a human again.
I bet she is. So Catherine's concern now is about daytime naps. So quite similar to Andrea. So her baby, like Andrea's, averages around about the 12 hours of sleep every 24 hours. And Catherine writes that ideally that would be 2 hours of daytime sleep and then 10 hours overnight. However, Catherine's little girl tends to catnap frequently, which ends up meaning that she has sometimes between 4 and 6 naps over 3 to 4 hours total. And then more daytime sleep then results in early rising or split nights for Catherine's baby. So Catherine's trying to keep her awake between naps, but she falls asleep easily in motion. So it's that catnip of motion, or during brief downtimes. So if she's in the carrier or pram or car, or even sometimes just on the playmat. And Catherine says that any efforts to wake her from these naps don't always work, especially when they're on the go. So Catherine has 3 questions, and perhaps what I'll do is just read them out in one go as well, Fallon, like you did.
Yep.
So Catherine says, how can I reduce the number of naps and help her stay awake longer between them? She also asks, should I wake her from cat naps when possible or allow her to complete a full 30-minute cycle? So I guess Catherine's baby's sleep cycles must be 30 minutes. And will she naturally begin to wake up longer or stay awake longer between naps as she gets older?
These are such good questions. There's so many things kind of rattling around my head on this one. So certainly, yes, as she gets older, she will naturally begin to stay awake longer between her naps, for sure. But I think what we want to think about are multiple factors. So first up, Catherine mentioned she's done the quick fade approach, and it's resulted in this great improvement with overnight sleep, which is wonderful. So her 5-month-old is doing some independent settling, which is great. Often once they master independent settling, that's when cat naps start to turn into longer naps, and it often happens at about the 5-month mark. So hopefully Catherine's daughter's really close to that point too. Simply they'll have a sleep cycle, rouse a little bit, go, yeah, I'm still in my cot. It's all the same. I know how to fall asleep here, and they'll go back to sleep, and you start to get those longer naps. And then, of course, if they have a longer nap, they're awake and happy for longer, so they're stretched out more. Then the next nap's also likely to be a bit longer. So what I would be thinking about is, Catherine, have you got to a point where you have phased out all the padding and the humming? And is your daughter completely independently falling asleep? Because sometimes, especially for day naps where sleep pressure tends to be a bit lower than it would be overnight, if they are padded or shushed, or you're just around doing something when they fall asleep, because their sleep is a bit lighter in the daytime, they come up into that sort of light sleep, they rouse, and if anything's not the same as it was before, they spring awake. So if you haven't quite, finished phasing out the padding and the humming, definitely do that. Work on that, because that could make a big difference with extending out those naps.
Yeah.
I'd also be tempted to think about what you want at night. So if you want a 10-hour window overnight, I guess what I was thinking was, if the day doesn't go well, still try to aim for your same bedtime and wake up time. I would still, be working really hard to avoid excessive day naps. So at 5 months, having 4 cat naps, not a big deal. 5 or 6, it's going to have a bit of an impact. And it could be similar to Andrea, I forgot her name for a moment, where we sort of advise to, even plan a week where you've got maybe, you plan some time around home where you're not on the move so much, where you do things that your baby really loves. So if your baby is so delighted when grandma comes to visit or a friend comes over because they love to see a new face, well, guess what? You're going to be having some house guests. Think of those things that make your baby really alert and awake, and that will help to start to stretch out those awake windows a little bit. Because it does sound like a bit of a cycle of little cat nap, little bit of time awake, little cat nap, where they're just constantly taking the edge off that sleep drive.
Yes.
And what else is there? Should she wake the baby from cat naps when possible, or allow the full 30-minute cycle? I think if you catch it in the first few minutes, she's just started to nod off, I would try and wake her up if you're trying to stretch things out a bit more. But if, she's 10, 15 minutes into that sleep cycle, I would probably just let it go, unless it's the last nap of the day, in which case I'd be like, no, up you get.
Yes.
We've got bedtime to plan for here.
Yes. And I wonder,
would you add anything to that one?
Yeah, only, Fallon, I think that, 6 cat naps a day at 5 months of age, what you could look at doing, Catherine is saying, do you know what, I'm going to, for the next week, I'm going to look at it just being the 5 naps a day and try and stop that very last nap that she's having close to bedtime. And like you were saying, Fallon, you could wake her mid-cycle from that one. And then just whilst she's still having it, and then let's drop that. So then she's just having the 5 cat naps, and then do the same thing again. Let's get her down to 4 cat naps. And then what you might start to see is that one of those naps starts to be longer, and then she's quickly going to move to 3 naps.
Yeah. I like that plan. You can kind of gradually do the change, and then with more time awake, much more likely that she's going to take a longer nap, because at the moment with lots of little cat naps, there's probably just not the sleep drive to warrant a long nap. So you'll get through this, Catherine. It can feel really tough when you're sort of stuck in this cycle, but just keep pushing gently, and it will come together hopefully really soon. And if you do need extra support, like I was saying earlier for Andrea, it's the sort of thing we can talk through in a coaching call and have a really close look at what's happening if we need to. All right. So shall I read out Laura's question?
Yeah.
Okay, so Laura has a 6-month-old baby girl who self-settles independently. Her total sleep need is just under 13 hours. She currently naps 3 times a day for about 2 hours of sleep and sleeps for 10 hours and 45 minutes overnight. Amazing. Laura suspects she may be ready to drop her 3rd nap due to the following signs. So she's taking longer to settle for the 3rd nap and at bedtime. She's staying quite alert at the end of her current wake windows, so not super tired. And for 2 nights, she's cried out briefly between sleep cycles, up to 4 cycles in a row until midnight. Oh, okay, so after each sleep cycle in the lead up to midnight. Although she doesn't open her eyes and she doesn't need any support, she just resettles within 1 or 2 minutes. But this has been sort of a new behaviour that's emerged recently. So Laura is keen to know, does this crying out between sleep cycles indicate reduced sleep pressure and the need to drop the 3rd nap, or might it reflect a shift in her total sleep needs? Is dropping to 2 naps too early at 6 months of age? And is it appropriate to use a 15-minute power nap as a transitional strategy while slowly extending her time awake, just to bridge the move to 2 naps? I already know your answer to that last one, Laura.
Yeah, I know. We have a difference of
you love
opinions
the bridging
here.
nap.
I'm a big fan of the bridging nap. But works for some babies, doesn't work for others. So the reason why it works for some babies is they're not such they're not as sensitive as some other babies at being woken mid-cycle. So sometimes just having a 15-minute little rest can just really help push through until bedtime. But if you have a baby that absolutely hates being woken mid-cycle, or it just, even if they've only had 15 minutes, it just completely throws off bedtime, then don't do it. So really, in answer to that question, Laura, it's going to be how your baby responds to a power nap.
Try it out.
Try it out and see how it goes. Next question was, is it too early to drop to 2 naps when your baby's 6 months old? Absolutely not. It's fine. Somewhere between 6 and 7 months is quite normal for babies to drop down to 2 naps. Some babies hang on to that 3rd nap until they're a bit older, closer to 8 months. But it does sound like your baby is showing quite a few of the signs that she is ready to drop down to 2 naps. And I do think you're onto something there, Laura, with noticing that you're hearing your baby move between her sleep cycles overnight, which is new. So it doesn't matter if that, for some families, they always hear that and their babies are just really noisy sleepers, and it's just nothing that would indicate anything that we would suggest needing a change for. But because this is new for your baby, because she's showing those other signs that settling is taking a bit longer for that last nap and at bedtime, and now she's a little bit more audible in the earlier part of the night, probably would say she is at the point where she's the sleep pressure is possibly not getting quite high enough at the start of the night. If it is working for you, though, at the moment, if it's just longer settling times, but let's say it's 10 minutes rather than 5, And she's not needing you to go in where overnight, where that hasn't been a change. I would stick with it 3 naps for the time being. But if it's becoming a problem and she's needing more support, getting unhappy about going into her cot, is then calling out to you, you're having to go in 4 times before midnight, then I'd be like, yeah, let's move her to the 2 naps. So it really depends how much of an impact it's having on her ability to fall asleep and stay asleep. And yeah, would you add anything, Fallon, to that?
Well, I think it raises an interesting question. And I was talking about this with a parent just last week in clinic, is, when they show signs that they're, starting to be ready. Like Laura's reported a lovely collection of signs. It sounds like her daughter is getting really close to needing to go to 2 naps. Often parents want to know, is it that we just drop the nap, but they still need the same amount of total sleep? So they might just have 2 slightly longer naps when they drop the 3rd nap. Or is it a case that there's a drop in sleep needs and we actually just get rid of that nap and we're not adding that sleep anywhere else?
Yes.
And I think that's really, a good thing to consider. And what I would lean towards is when you drop a nap, I would say as a first port of call for the first maybe 3 days of dropping that nap, add that 3rd nap, whether it's 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, add that to the total day sleep. So keep it in that total day sleep. So if you had 2 hours total day sleep across 3 naps, well, it's going to be 2 hours total day sleep across 2 naps, just so that then they're getting that bit of sleep. They might still need to drop that extra bit of sleep. But when they're trying to cope with longer time awake, you're giving them the chance of that little bit more sleep just to help ease that transition. And after 3 days, you might find, we didn't need to add the 3rd nap to that total day sleep. We actually can just drop that now. But it can help just to ease that transition. And of course, keep an eye on the total sleep average that you're seeing in your child's sleep diary, because if that is consistently dropping lower, well, that'd be a pretty good clue that you're going to drop the 3rd nap and not need to, add that somewhere else to the night or to the total day sleep. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And I will often talk about how sometimes when let's say you've got the 3 naps and that last nap might just be one sleep cycle, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever your child's sleep cycle is. And then when their child is ready to drop that last nap of the day, sometimes, and you'd only be able to see this if you're looking at a video, but sometimes I've got my fingers kind of around that 3rd nap, and sometimes I just go poof, I open my fingers and that 30 to 45 minutes just goes off into the ether. It's gone. Never to be seen again. But other times this either goes into an earlier nap or it moves to bedtime. And we just never know. We just don't know, because sleep is always changing. And so I really love your suggestion, Fallon, of initially just try and hold on to it. Let's try and push. We take that 3rd nap and we just shuffle it into the 1st or 2nd nap, and then we see if we can keep that total amount of day sleep. I think that's a really good place to start, because your babies are going to be then having to stay awake longer. We want them to be able to be functioning and managing well. But just bear in mind that if it doesn't go into the nap and their bedtime doesn't come earlier, then it going poof off into the ether is actually
it was
a normal experience. It's time to go. Sleep needs to, of course, they have to continue to decline. They have to. That's just what happens. We're not having children starting school still needing 15 hours worth of sleep. And even children in kinder, they're not. Many of those aren't having 15 hours of sleep. It's just, it makes sense. It's just part of development for sleep needs to drop. So it's going to go at some point.
Yeah, it will. It absolutely will. And I think while we're on this topic, I've had quite a few parents who have thought that when they drop a 3rd nap, that the 1st nap and the 2nd nap will stay at the same times of day, who think that, okay, well, we normally have one nap at 9 a.m. and another nap at 12 p.m. How am I going to get them through to their 7 p.m. bedtime? And I'm like, no. We get to shuffle that around now.
Yes.
So it might be a 10:30 a.m. nap and a 2:30 p.m. nap or something. So, of course, you always want to sort of roughly equally distribute the naps across the day with a slightly longer period of time awake in the lead up to bedtime. That's kind of what you're aiming for there. I love those questions, though. It was really nice to have the time to really unpack those
Mm.
particular questions, because I think they're relevant to so many parents navigating sleep in that first year. So, yeah, thank you for sending those in, guys. And I also want to thank two wonderful people who bought us coffees in the last week. And I wanted to read out some lovely things that they said. First is someone with the username Despina, I hope I'm saying that correctly, who bought us 2 coffees. And she said, "Thank you for continuing to make these helpful podcasts. I really feel like a fish out of water. Really felt like a fish out of water for such a long time. I was told by so many people that cot settling was the same as cry it out. I'm so glad I found you both to validate that they are indeed wrong. I am also so grateful to have gained a better understanding around sleep needs. After accepting that my baby is just a low sleep needs baby, we are all just so much happier."
Oh,
That's so lovely.
it is so lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done. I mean, it can just be it's just a missing piece of the puzzle for some families. And
Yeah.
gosh, I mean, we
It
talk about it a
is.
lot, but so many families are suffering because their child just
Yeah.
simply doesn't have a high sleep need. And when
Oh,
you're
yeah.
educated about why that's just the case for some babies, gosh, it's life-changing.
Makes a difference. It really is life-changing. And I love what Despina said about, realizing that cot settling is not the same as cry it out.
Mm.
That's exactly why we did that episode a couple of weeks back, to explain what cry it out actually is, and that cot
Yes.
settling is not cry it out. Because like so many people, and it was a big thing on our TikTok account as well, were like, whoa,
Yeah.
I've been led down the garden path on that one. And I think that, I don't know, I love what we're doing, Laura. I really do.
Yeah.
And it's hard work in this space. And there are some days that feel punishing.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, there's the trolls online, and we're not immune to that. It can absolutely flatten us some days.
Yeah.
But it is so rewarding hearing that parents are finding it really validating and really useful to have some of these myths busted wide open. And I hope that it's helping parents to feel like they have agency. They can look at their child. They can make an educated decision around how they choose to approach sleep and settling, and know that you are the expert in your child. And, we can give you some advice. But at the end of the day, it's up to you, and you do know better than we do. you know your child better than we ever will.
That's right. And you know how you're functioning as a family. And, I follow some mums on TikTok who are in the trenches at the moment. I don't think they've found us yet, but they're in the trenches, and they videoing themselves on the, come with me on a typical night with my 6-month-old, or, those type of reels, excuse me. And these parents are absolutely exhausted, doing everything they can to love and support their baby's sleep, up for multiple times through the night, over and over and over again. It's relentless. And those people saying, you shouldn't change anything about sleep. Come on, just watch some of those videos.
When they're older. No, you won't. You won't miss it. You'll be thinking, thank Christ we got through that. How good is it to sleep all night? You're not going to miss that. You'll miss having snuggles with your baby, but you have all day to snuggle with your baby.
Yeah.
You will, oh my goodness. Oh, the guilt that comes with parenting, though. It really is just wild.
Yeah.
I also wanted to read out a really lovely review we got from Brianne, who bought us 5 coffees, which is so generous and so lovely. And she said, "Thank you for generously making the podcast available to listeners. It is such an incredible resource. As a pediatric neuropsychologist, I will be recommending this podcast to parents who are in the trenches with their children's sleep. And as a new parent myself, I've already benefited immensely. So grateful for all you do." How awesome is that?
Yeah,
that's lovely praise from a pediatric neuropsychologist. And we do have so many health professionals and people pediatricians, who work with us. And we just love that we have the trust of people who really understand children's health.
Yeah, that's right. And the importance of families functioning well, parental mental health, infant mental health, and where sleep sits in that, and what we can and can't change, what we can and what we can expect. So yes, we do have a lovely community of health professionals who both work with us, with their patients, but also use our resources when they are parents themselves.
And refer to us as well. I love this lovely network we've got now of wonderful parents who are now referring their own clients over to us. It's beautiful. So look, if you would like to buy us a coffee, we will pop the link in our show notes. We so appreciate the families who do. Of course, if you need support with sleep and settling, you can always join Sombal. You can book in coaching calls if you find that you need an additional level of support whilst you're working through our online program resources. And if you're on TikTok, go and search for Sombal right now. Give us a follow. Come and join in some of the conversations that we're having there, because it feels like a really lovely community. Touch wood.
Yeah,
we keep it like that. But yeah, do come and follow us along. And thank you to all the families who just allow us to do this amazing, wonderful work that we love. And we hope you all have a terrific week.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.